She's exposing what she says is Elon Musk's militant-style leadership driven by fear. Kristen Kavanaugh led Tesla's DEI program for 5 years. She left on her own accord, but regrets not standing up to Musk.
Kavanaugh is urging others, including federal workers, to push back on Doge cuts. She details it all in her new book, Courage Over Fear. Kristen Kavanaugh joins us now. Welcome to Rising.
Thanks for having me.
So I think probably a lot of people watching wonder, what was it like working for Elon Musk?
It was a role of a lifetime. I was really committed to Tesla's mission. I believed in the vision. I felt like when I was going to work every day, I was there to change the world and doing my part to prevent climate change. But it changed over time. And so I felt a disconnect between the vision and the mission and what I was experiencing on the ground with Elon and the fear-based leadership and how he was demonstrating that and promoting a fear-based leadership style as a way to get things done. And I just disagree vehemently that you have to use fear to make progress. And so that's why we wrote the book, to really call for courage and to show our leaders that there's a better way and we don't have to lean on fear as the only tool.
Can you give examples of what you mean by fear-based leadership?
Sure. I mean, you think about typical authoritarian styles, right? Uh, Intimidation tactics, veiled threats, tweets in the middle of the night. That's what I experienced. For me, it was a lot of the tweeting and waking up in the morning and not knowing what I was going to have to walk into with Elon's tweet. I basically had to stand in the gap between his tweets, our employees who were rightfully outraged by some of the things that he was saying, and then a bloodthirsty media who wanted to understand how this could be happening and coming from a leader that everybody saw as so visionary. And so, really standing in that moment felt isolating. Every time there was a tweet, he refused to apologize, he refused to delete a lot of them. And that really left me standing alone trying to defend what we had said our values were versus what he was espousing on Twitter, which just didn't align, as we've all now learned.
Now, Kristen, you worked at the intersection of identity, equity, and power. So what are some myths about DEI that you want to dispel and that you might be dispelling in your book?
Absolutely. And I think the biggest one is that DEI is antithetical to meritocracy. That's just not true. Equity is really there to support people who are performing and who deserve to be in roles. And what it does is make sure that we're opening our eyes to all of the options for people that are performing to be able to see them and make sure that we are giving opportunity and not overlooking them. And so I think the meritocracy line, which Elon gives all the time, is just not true. And so we see that in the Department of Defense as well. We see it across the federal government, this push toward meritocracy. What we're asking for and what we're saying is we are all better players, we're a better team when we recruit from the diverse realms of the world and when we include different viewpoints and different backgrounds and different experiences. I identify as an African American lesbian woman. I'm also a Marine veteran. I've seen the world from a lot of different places, and that meant something when I was at Tesla and giving input and advice on how we should approach different populations. And so that's really what DEI is about, is making sure we're making space for all of those views and all those values to be heard and mean something inside our companies and inside our country.
I guess to push back on that, I've never heard someone going against DEI say that anything you just said is objectionable. Making sure people who've been underrepresented. Lindsay and I just talked about this with respect to air traffic controllers and pilots and those kinds of things. If people are underrepresented because they don't know, or they come from groups that are underrepresented because they don't know about job opportunities or educational opportunities, I don't think anyone on my side is saying don't do outreach. Outreach is fine. The question is about lowering standards to achieve representation that more reflects the levels of the population. That's what I think people who oppose DEI are talking about.
Yeah, that's an absolute myth. Take the military as an example, right? You hear all these people talking about how the military lowered standards for women to move into combat roles. That's just not true. And so they're using that same line to attack corporations who are also not lowering standards for people to get in the door. And so, I think I respectfully disagree that any standards have been lowered or are being lowered, or that that's even the idea around equity and inclusion. The idea is making sure that people have a shot at an opportunity. If you perform, you get in. If you're not ready to perform, that's okay. You can learn and you can grow and you can step into a role. But this has never been about lowering standards. And I push back vehemently against anybody that says that that's the case.
Now, in a time where DEI roles are being cut across the country, what still gives you hope? And what do you tell somebody that may be in a role at a company that wants to speak up about these type of initiatives and feels like they have to be silenced?
Absolutely. I think you look across the board at companies who have put anti DEI proposals to shareholder vote. That's giving me hope right now because they're all failing. And they're not only failing, they're failing big. And so if I was in a DEI role, that would give me hope that not only I have the backing of shareholders, I have the backing of the leadership that's willing to put that forth to shareholders to prove a point. And so there are some companies that just aren't in that position, right? And we have to be honest about that, that they aren't willing and their values are being tested. And so that can feel hopeless for some DEI leaders. But what I'm asking for specifically in this book is for people to have courage. Right now is the time for all of us to have courage and to do and say the thing that feels hard and to do and say the thing that might feel risky. And somebody has to be willing to step up before it's too late and our corporations have slid too far toward authoritarianism and fear-based leadership and the ability to wash DEI out of our business practices. And so that would be my ask. Stay strong. There are companies out there that are proving that DEI is a solid business practice that is helping the bottom line. And you have to be able to show the courage to talk to your team and willing to stand up for what you think is right.
Um, you said a moment ago that there is not different standards in the military. I don't personally have the information to contradict you, but I'm just searching, and the mainstream sources, the Associated Press, Seattle Times, I'm reading from, say that in 2022, the Army eased the grading standards for women and older service members. Other branches of the military have different fitness standards for men and women, and Hegseth has gotten rid of that and faced some criticism. Am I missing something there in the analysis I just presented?
There have always been different standards for men and women across the board. What I'm talking about is in special operations, where people have said that, or there has been chaos around people saying that the standards for special operations and opening combat roles for women, the standards were lowered for women to be able to take those roles. That's not true. The standards are the standards. And as long as women meet those standards and they're capable, they should be able to have those jobs. And so I'm not arguing that I was a Marine. I had different standards for being a Marine Corps officer, but I also wasn't an infantry officer. And so in those roles where the skill set is so specialized and requires a certain level and a certain standard, you have to be able to meet that. And the military is not changing those highly specialized roles for women to be able to step in through a side door or back door. It's just not true. The honest answer is women are going to Ranger School and women are stepping up and they're passing. That's what we need to focus on.
Kristen Kavanaugh, thank you so much for showing your courage over your fear. We appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.
Next up on Rising, Joe Rogan reignites the Dave Smith and Douglas Murray feud. Here we go.